Call this regular meeting of the Hartford Board of Education to order. Ms. Dorfman, can you please take attendance? Here.
Spectator.
Present.
McCauley.
Here.
Mayor Becerra.
Here.
Sally Best.
Here.
Michael Resha.
Here.
Robert Goldman Jr. Matthew Bowman.
Here.
Trevor Moore.
Thank you. Good evening. As Chairman of the Hartford Board of Education, I hereby call to order the August 26, 2014 regular meeting of the Board. I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. The Board, the Superintendent, and I are pleased that you have joined us as we celebrate achievement, review information, and make policy decisions related to the effective operation of the Hartford Public Schools. This is a regular meeting, and all items that will be discussed or voted upon this evening have been posted as required by state law. As the Hartford Board of Education, we are here to set goals, listen to reports of the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, and personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. We are not here to make management decisions or to solve the problems of individuals. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent. The monthly meetings of the board are open to the public. They are the time when the board conducts its business of governing the school system in a public arena. The regular meetings are not meetings with the public. Therefore, comments from the audience will be confined to the time designated for the public to address the board. Decorum and courtesy are important elements in effective public meetings. Please silence your cell phones or communication devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that proceedings be accurately reported, I may have to ask periodically for order should noise begin to interfere with our recording capabilities. I am pleased that you have taken the time this evening to join us. We are very proud of our school system, and we thank you for your interest in the Hartford Public Schools. Item 4, dialogue. And we have a limited number of speakers, but 3 minutes per speaker, please, as per our guidelines. So with that, Hyacinth Yenny. And just so everyone knows, at 2 minutes, Ms. Dorfman will give you a ring of the bell. So you know you only have 1 minute left, and then at 3 minutes, she'll give you the second bell, at which time please make way for the next speaker.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Superintendent, board members. Welcome to the new school year. I want to thank you I'm Hyacinth Yenny, community activist, and live in the south end of Hartford. I want to thank you on behalf of the parents and the community. Thank you for inviting me this morning on the bus tour to go into some of these schools, which I pretty much appreciate as usual. And I have to say, walking into a couple of those schools, especially 2 of those schools, I felt like it was a village that when you raise your children like a village, everyone is cared for. And that's what I felt in the Burns Latino School and the Clark Elementary School. I felt that because that's what a school is all about, making the parent feel welcome in that building. And when parents are welcome, there is a lot of difference in our school. I know what it's all about when it comes to parent involvement. Superintendent, I'm going to challenge you to focus on our parent involvement. Parent and teacher partnership. It is the critical thing for making a successful future for our children. It cannot be just the teachers. It has to be the parent. There needs to be almost like a campaign around parents and letting them know how important it is, how critical it is for them to be a part and be at that table. I like the model that Burns used because they're training their parents. Their parents are welcome to come into school to do some, getting some understanding of what it is to make sure they're there for their children. And that's really is critical. So I'm asking you, please put some focus in that. The other thing is making sure the fact that you know that we are, as parents, are here to help you and reach out to us. I do not have any hidden agenda. There's no string attached. I'm here for parent empowerment because I know what it's like to make sure that your children is getting the best. And I'm hoping that all our children can soar to the highest. Doesn't matter what school it is. That's why I like about you, because you're focusing on all our children, not just magnet school. But I like that component with Craig and Hartford. That's a very good component there. So the more we can do of that, the better we will be. I like what they've done at that school. There is hope and future for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Levy Cardulis.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Superintendent, Mr. Mayor, Board of Ed. Welcome to Bulkley High School. My name is Levy Cardulis. I have children here in the Hartford School District at Annie Fisher, Hartford High, and JMA. Live here in the city, 56 Lincoln Street. I am the head custodian here at Bulkley High School. And so what I wanted to talk about was staffing. It's been another very difficult summer for our custodial staffs. And I know we talked about Clark. I spent a lot of time at Clark School this summer where we only have 3 custodians. You know, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse because I talk about the same thing every single time, but we don't do anything. But a lot of these schools, there's only 3 custodians in these buildings. So if it's a snow day, you know, you got one guy on a 2-hour delay to do the grounds at Clark. So that grounds encompass Barber Street, Nelson Street, and that part of Clark Street. So you got one guy running out with a snowblower. You know, you got to make sure breakfast is all set. At some point, you know, we need to hire, I'm not saying hiring 10 guys, I'm saying, you know, we need one more at least. The other issue that I have with our custodians is that we're not trained any longer. When the good Dr. Adamowski came in, one of the things he did away with all the training for the custodians. So professional development comes around, we don't get any of that. It's like we're not professional. Even though you want the building and the grounds to look good, but we're not working all the same way. And if we're cutting custodians and tradesmen, I think it would be more imperative for us to be trained properly. So everyone's working the same, especially if it's less bodies. The other issue that I have in a lot of these schools, I'm fortunate here at Bulkley. I have 2 great principals, but a lot of these schools, the school-based budgeting, principals are holding up on supply money for the custodians. We don't have a hard budget because we don't know that Pedro is gonna, you know, flip out and put paper products all in the toilets and go, before we have a PPT, go through about $1,500 worth of product. So you can't hold us to that, nor do we know how much snow is gonna fall out the sky. You know, you're talking like at Clark School, I believe the budget is $8,000 for the whole year. I don't know how we're gonna be able to do that, but I hope with the new superintendent coming in, we can address those issues, maybe get it at these 3-man schools, maybe just one more custodian. Thank you.
Thank you. Millie Arseniegas.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Millie Arseniegas. I'm a resident of Hartford. I always forget to say my name, so there you have it. Today was a great day. It was a day of coming together and seeing the businesses and seeing everyone excited, families and children, showcasing their schools and having that great feeling on the first day. That's what it's all about. So I'm glad I went on the bus tour and seeing the kids and the families and the parents. But also I want to just share with you, with all this greatness, a couple of things that along the way I heard about today. A parent that came to me was excited about today. She gets to her classroom and they tell her that she has a substitute teacher for the next 3 months. So her child will have a substitute teacher for the next 3 months. And I just want us to think about that for a second here, with this transition from one teacher to the other. It's not good. You know, kindergarten, you're starting kindergarten and you have a substitute teacher. And we want to make sure that these, I don't know if we're practicing this, but we want to make sure that these substitute teachers are certified. Because that brings an issue to the gap when you have substitute teachers in the classroom for long periods of time. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then the other point I wanted to share with you is choice. You know, I received many calls this morning about choice and where one family has 3 children in 3 different schools and she's trying to get three kids to the 3 different schools and she couldn't do it. So none of the kids went to school. Do we want that in a choice system? You know, we're dealing with single families, they're doing the best they can. So we really, if this is not a priority, if choice is not a priority at the top of your list, I recommend that it should be. Because it's displacing families all over the place. So thank you.
Thank you. W. Michael Downs.
Good evening, board members, and the superintendent, mayor, and Mr. Chairman. I got about 4 issues here. One is, I mentioned Jamoki School last month, that they should be a magnet or neighborhood school. Probably should be a magnet school. I will say one thing about them as a charter school. They did get their own building. They didn't take or steal or connive to get occupy one of the buildings owned by the Hartford Public Schools. Which brings another item up concerning the charter schools. They should all open their books. I mean, they are public schools, whether they think they are or they don't. They're public schools, and their budgets are public, and they should be open. And we should go over them line by line to see where they're spending their money, just like we do with the neighborhood schools and the magnet schools. And I hope that we're not considering starting to close another neighborhood school because some charter school wants it. I do know that one of the schools that came to my ears was Wish School, which is my neighborhood. A lot of children in my neighborhood. And Wish School has a lot of students. And also, these neighborhood schools, when they eliminated the middle school system in Hartford, which was one of the few districts in the state of Connecticut that has no middle school system, they still are responsible, the school system and the schools and whoever hands out the money, we're still responsible by law for providing a certified guidance counselor, a certified librarian, and a certified health teacher for 7th and 8th grade. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public comment. Item 5, reports. Report of the chair. The chair very briefly reported that today the chair was part of the bus tour. We had the opportunity to see 4 of our schools, Pathways, Rawson, Clark, and Burns. And I'll just say that for those of you that have spent a lot of time at Burns, it's remarkable how good Burns looked today. There's been a lot of great work done there, still a lot more work to do, but it was very, very heartening to go there today And, you know, Clark also is a school that needs a lot of work, but it looks head and shoulders better than it looked even 3 months ago. And it was very heartening to see that there's been some good work done there in conjunction with our friends at CREC, but also that the principal there has really stepped up and has really done a great job of starting to build, you know, a foundation where things can get done there. And it was great to see. So with that, the chair will conclude his report. Dr. Narvaez.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is the first day of school, and it has been a great day. As you heard from some of our colleagues, our parent and community leaders who are on the bus tour, and our chair. We also had several other board members on the bus tour this morning. It was a great morning, and we were showcasing some new work going on in the Hartford Public Schools. So at Pathways, this is the first full year that they're in the new building. We got to see some amazing project-based learning spaces, some collaboration spaces. My own team was asking, when can we get collaboration spaces in the central office? But a great school. They were the High School Magnet School of America winner last year for 2014. So we are really pleased to showcase that new building, to honor their accomplishment and to honor their partnership with Goodwin College. Second, we went to Burns Latino Studies Academy, and again, while not a new program, I call that the school on the move. We're just seeing some great leadership there, and again, great partnerships with the community. It was really a great morning, and I have to credit that team. They were with me at 5 this morning doing the news reports, their whole team, talking about how excited we were to start the new school day. After that, we went to Rawson School to showcase the Lighthouse Initiative, and again, another great model of partnerships with the city, with the state, with our business and community partners. So we're really pleased and believe that that can be a game changer in the city, and we're really happy to go there this morning. And last, Clark School, and we were showcasing our new partnership with CREC, and I'll tell you, that school looks completely different. That's what we call a quick win in turnaround work. Just the whole environment has been transformed to a very welcoming and warm space for our students. So we're very hopeful about that partnership and for their continued success in this school year. And all in all, I debriefed with my team this afternoon about the first day of school, and things are running smoothly. We always have to work through a few glitches on the first day. It takes a little time to iron things out, but all in all, it was reported to me that this was a strong start to the school year with very few issues and problems to sort out. I would also like to acknowledge that the beginning of the school year can be challenging for many of our families, but there was a lot of excitement at 960 Main Street yesterday as many students and families received backpacks and much needed school supplies. New Country Mini hosted a school supply drive and filled up their Mini Coopers with much needed pens, papers, and backpacks. And I would like to publicly thank Todd Merriweather and his team at New Country Mini for their partnership and support, and our very own Marta Bentham for her continued dedication to our families. And because of them, 600 Hartford Public School students will begin schools more prepared to learn and thrive. It was pretty cool to have the Mini Coopers pulled up, filled with school supplies. So we really thank our friends at New Country Mini for their generosity in doing this supply drive for our students and families. Also, shout outs go out to the Surprise Squad. The Surprise Squad is a segment on WFSB TV News in which staffers from the station perform acts of kindness for those who encounter a short-term unexpected need. So they visited Milner Elementary School last week with brand new uniform tops for the entire student population. Parents and their children were lured to the school by Principal Karen Lott on another matter, and they were on hand when the crew arrived. And members of the teaching staff were also present to help distribute the new uniform shirts. So again, we're so grateful for the generosity of so many members of our community. Yesterday was also a big day for us. We had our convocation. I think we had 1,800 people gathered together in the SMSA field house. Also, I want to thank you to the board members who were able to attend. And once again, I have to say how impressed I am with our young people. They have proven that they can rise and shine when given the opportunity. I want to again recognize Zara and Camilla Kinch. I think the cutest little students who have ever led the Pledge of Allegiance. And Remy Maxwell from Kinsella Magnet School of the Performing Arts, and the premier drumline from Kennelly School and the Kinsella Dance Ensemble. They were just fabulous. And it was also inspiring to see and interact with our teachers and other staff, and to hear you, Board Chair Waring, Mayor Segarra, thank you for sharing a little bit of your stories to our community, and to hear our 2014 Teacher of the Year, Justin Taylor. I mean, he is such an inspiration. And it's always inspiring and humbling to hear why leaders and teachers choose to do what they do. And I consider us all privileged to be in this work together. It's a significant time of renewal and rebirth. That's our theme. You see the trees on all of our brochures and the signs welcoming people back to school. And I'm looking forward to all of us crafting our story together, to us crafting our next chapter in the Hartford Public Schools. And it was also great to witness the dance talents of our principals and central office staff. I'd like to report that our first flash mob was a success. But seriously, as superintendent, the dedication, camaraderie, and teamwork made evident by my colleagues throughout the system made me hopeful. And I'd like to thank all of my colleagues who had a hand in creating the electrifying convocation we had yesterday. I have a new segment I'm going to do in the superintendent's report, and this is shout outs to schools. So we recently received the Connecticut Academic Proficiency Test and the CMT test taken by our 5th, 8th, and 10th grade students in science only. As you know, we're transitioning to SBAC, and so we field tested those tests in math and reading last year, so we only got the CMT and CAP science results. But many of our schools displayed gains that I think are worthy of recognition. Among 10th graders who took the CAP science examination, 3 of 18 schools that offer this high school instruction posted proficiency increases in their average test scores. I want to give shout outs to Culinary Arts, Great Path Academy, and the Law and Government Academy, who saw the greatest increases on the CAP science exam last year. In the 5th grade, CMT, 23 of 30 schools increased their proficiency scores over last year by 7.2 percentage points overall. This was the greatest gain, the greatest performance that we saw across the system in 5th grade. The schools with the largest gains included Simpson-Waverly, Rawson, the Museum Academy at Wish School, Burns Latino Studies Academy, and Burr Elementary School. And then in 8th grade, we saw the largest gains at MD Fox Elementary, ML King Elementary, and the Asian Studies Academy, and again at Rawson Elementary. So shout outs to those schools, and we hope that this is a regular segment in the superintendent's report, because we want to highlight the great work that we see going on in our schools. I promised you that I would continue to update you on my entry plan and transition team progress, so just a brief update. I continue to have a lot of engagement events. I've had several different events with parents, great turnouts to listen to their ideas, thoughts, and concerns. I've had several sessions also with parent training and community-based organizations, a series of 4 brown bag lunches with our central office staff. And members of the transition team, in addition to the work that I'm doing to listen and learn, members of the transition team are continuing to meet with a variety of stakeholders to gather data pertaining to their respective areas: teaching and learning, operational effectiveness and efficiency, organizational culture and leadership, equity, and family and community engagement. Some of the emerging themes across the board include, first and foremost, an appreciation for the opportunity to be heard. Second, the need for continued relationship building, communication, and collaboration. The need to ensure that every school is a great option for all of our students, and a great desire to continue to learn and grow. And I'll keep you posted as we get more findings from the transition team. Remember, the final report will be released in October, and then we'll have another series of engagement events to sort through the findings together and to craft and refine our strategic vision for our school system. And just last, before I turn it over to our Chief Financial Officer, I want to acknowledge our Board of Education members. We had a retreat on August 13th, and in many respects, our time together marked a new beginning. And in line with one of the themes I've been using, we have certainly begun to craft the next chapter. I believe it's important to build relationships and develop a shared understanding of how we're going to join forces and work together on behalf of our students, our families, and our community in the great city of Hartford. So I personally want to thank each member at this table for giving your time and for being fully present for the many hours we spent at the table together. These are certainly signs of your passion and commitment to our schools and our children, and I look forward to our future together. So I just deeply want to thank you for your time and the open, honest conversation. I think we're off to a great start, and for that I'm really grateful for your leadership and partnership. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paula Altieri, our Chief Financial Officer, who is going to update us on the year-end financial report. And just before she begins, I want to commend Paula for her leadership and the tremendous work that her team does. They are great stewards of the financial resources that we have in this system, and I want to commend you for being such great stewards and keepers and being so careful with our taxpayers' dollars. And with that, Paula, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Narvaez. Good evening, Chairman Waring, Mayor Segarra, Dr. Narvaez, board members, the Hartford community, families, and colleagues. So I'm excited to be with you tonight to share our year-end financial report for our 2013-14 fiscal year. For the 12-month period ending June 30th of 2014, we have expended a total of $280.9 million, or 99.3% of the 2013-14 general fund budget of $283.008 million. We have closed the fiscal year with a positive variance in general funds of just about $2.1 million. The final variances are explained in the report. We did have a negative variance in the salary accounts of $37,296, which represented 0.0% of the salary budgets. We have a negative variance in professional contracts and services of $506,145, or 10% of the professional contracts and services budget. We've been talking about this. There are two variances that go into this. The first, which we've talked about, is a $600,000 negative variance as a result of the approved contribution and MOU with the Greater Hartford Consortium for Higher Ed for the administration of the Hartford Promise Scholarship. And that was offset by favorable savings that we've achieved in professional instructional improvement contracts of $97,181. We also ended the year with a negative variance in rental of facilities line, or 24.9% of that budget. And we've also been forecasting this for some time. The variance is attributable to the approved build-out of the facility at Lincoln Culinary Institute to house the temporary location of Weaver Culinary during the Weaver High School renovation project. We had a great year in transportation. We had favorable savings achieved in student transportation. If you remember, during our budget dialogue, this was an area of focus for us over the last several years. I want to thank Don Slater and Fred Till, Jose Rivera, and the student transportation group. The savings achieved was $1.3 million, or 5.5% of the student transportation budget. We had a negative variance in the year-end in student tuition. This is an area that we've continued to struggle with. However, I'm very pleased to report is the deficit was limited to 1.5% of the student tuition budget, or $577,000. We had another strong year in our fringe benefits budget. We yielded almost $7 million in savings, or 6.5% of the fringe budget. You can find the accounts which comprise this on page 5 of this report. However, the vast majority of this variance, close to 90%, is due to favorable health care claims over the past year, along with a decrease in our annual required contribution to our OPEB liability. And lastly, we had favorable savings achieved in other miscellaneous accounts totaling just about $253,000, or 1.2% of these accounts. And these accounts include communications, advertising, printing, travel, supplies, materials, and other unclassified accounts. In special funds, the year-end report shows total grants received of $145.73 million, with total expenditures of $132.31 million, for an ending balance of $13.42 million, or 9.2% of grants received. The variances include multi-year and carry-forward grants. If you recall, the majority of our grants are multi-year or carry-forward, and that totaled $13.34 million, or approximately 9.6%. We also did have about 5 one-year grants that have some lapsing funds at June 30th, which total just about $81,000. And the 5 grants listed here are Carl Perkins, Title II School Improvement Carryover, Title II Carryover, the CREC MSAT grant, and a small interdistrict cooperative grant. I also want to extend my thanks to the staff in the entire school district. The finance staff does not do this alone, and I want to say congratulations on another successful year demonstrating strong fiscal discipline. So this concludes my report, and I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Other questions from Ms. Altieri? Mr. Mayor.
Just to comment, just to congratulate you and your staff for the wonderful work. We know that in these difficult times of budgeting and with all the contingencies that we face, the excellent job has been done in managing the financial resources. And also a special shout out to the folks that have been responsible for managing the transportation costs. There's been a good reduction in that account, which has helped to finish the year off with a positive balance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No, before you, I'll let you. Mr. Cotto.
Thanks. Ms. Altieri, we didn't get it. I just wanted to kind of follow up, looking ahead towards the future. First of all, this is I think in some ways good news, but we had talked about kind of evaluating the student-based budgeting system several months ago. Today we were on the trip at Clark, and the man from CREC, Tim Nee, was essentially asking for donors to fund the library, because there weren't enough funds through the student-based budgeting, nor through the extra money through the commissioners network, as apparently. The principal also pretty much indicted the student-based budgeting for not having enough money to have a functioning library. So I'm curious as to whether or not we're going to be able to revisit this system at the next workshop or the next Board of Ed retreat.
I mean, I'll take that one only because I asked my transition team as part of their work in the Operational Effectiveness and Efficiency Committee to take a strong look at the student-based budgeting system and to make any recommendations for any tweaks or upgrades that need to be made. So that's part of their look at and study of the system. And Paula, feel free to add anything.
Yes, that's what I was going to add. So we have been looking at that. We have been meeting with focus groups and asking specific questions about that. So we hope to provide our recommendations to Dr. Narvez when we finish up the recommendations for the transition team, and then we'll engage the board about what that looks like going forward. So we do recognize that's been a question, and we hope to address it fully by the time the transition team work is done.
Thanks. Anything else? Mr. Poland.
Thank you, Chairman. Relative to the libraries, in particular to Mr. Cotto's point, Clark is by no means the only one, as you know, that is without a library. That's been brought up frequently. And I think that Dwight or the Parkville branch lost its library this year, also to the lack of funds to keep these libraries open. I have had discussions with Dr. Narvez about the program that started last year in the South End, where administrators in the schools are working with the public library to try to fill in the gaps here, even if those are only temporary in the long run. And I think it's going to be important for us to continue to do that because we keep losing libraries. And even though libraries are changing dramatically, there's got to be some way to provide those services to youngsters and families, particularly when it's on the out-of-school side of things. So we are working at that. We want to be careful, however, not to make false moves around libraries. That is, some funder comes rolling in the door and says, well, let's put in a beautiful library in Clark, and then everybody forgets Rawson, and we forget Simpson Waverly, and so forth. We've got to be careful to make sure that it's an equitable treatment relative to the library system, I think, across the district.
Okay.
Anything else? Before I let you know, Ms. Altieri, I want to thank you. I'll echo what Dr. Narvez and the mayor said. You did a great job. And also Dr. Slater and Fred Thiel. And 2 years ago, transportation was not in a good place from a fiscal point of view. And to show an operating surplus in the transportation account is a lot. It represents a lot of work in a very short period of time. And also I want to thank John Griffin, who's not here tonight. One of the main reasons why we run surpluses in Fringe is because of John's work, and he does a tremendous job of cramming down our insurance and risk management costs, and we would not be able to show positive numbers at year end without his work. I want to call him out even though he's not here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And just before I end, I want to thank the principals of Buckley High School for hosting us here tonight, Gail Allen Green and Oscar Padua. Thank you for having us here. And that concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Item 6, business agenda, sub A. Number 1, acceptance of funds, National Foundation for Governors Fitness Council's $100,000. The National Foundation for Governors Fitness Council is committed to breaking the current cycle of childhood obesity and providing children with a new opportunity to grow up healthy and strong. Acceptance of these funds will result in the installation of a Live Positively trademark fitness center at Maria Sanchez Elementary School. The resolution is that the Hartford Board of Education accepts the funds in the amount of $100,000 from the National Foundation for Governors Fitness Councils and the state of Connecticut. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded.
Second.
Dr. Narvez.
Yes, thank you. This is a fun one. So as you noted, the National Foundation for Governors Fitness Council has offered to install a fitness center at the Maria Sanchez School. And by installing fitness centers in schools, the NFGC is making a positive impact on the lives of children and improving their long-term well-being. Acceptance of these funds will result in the installation of a Live Positively fitness center at Maria Sanchez School. This in turn will provide additional opportunities for the school to help encourage students to make fitness and wellness a top priority. Each fitness center includes strength training equipment, cardio fitness equipment, and interactive exercise games designed to fit the unique needs of each school. The award includes the design, delivery, and installation of the equipment within the school's existing building structure. We'll be tracking usage of the fitness centers through fitness logs and sign-in, sign-out sheets with detailed descriptions and pre- and post-comparison charts. And the center will also be open to the community twice a week after school, and will notify parents and community about when the fitness center will be open to them.
Thank you. Questions for Dr. Narvez? Hearing no questions, the chair will call the question for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any against? Motion carries. Item 8.2, acceptance of funds, school improvement grants for McDonough Expeditionary Learning, America's Choice at SNANS, and Burns Latino Studies Academy. Acceptance of these funds will allow the recipients of the 1003A grants to implement their high-quality plans for school improvement in the areas of talent, academics, culture and climate, and operations. The resolution is that the Hartford Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to accept the funds in the amount of $460,000 from the Connecticut State Department of Education School Improvement Grant for the McDonough Expeditionary Learning School, America's Choice at Sand, and Burns Latino Studies Academy. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Dr. Narvaez.
Yes, this is another good news story for us. On May 20th, 2014, the Connecticut State Department of Education's turnaround office school improvement competition awarded school improvement grants to 3 of our schools. Again, I want to emphasize this was a competitive grant. The 3 competitive grants are part of $6.6 million in federal and state funding directed to more than 24 public schools across Connecticut, and the state has deemed low performing and in need of improvement. 82 schools were eligible for the aid, 47 applied, 3 of ours got it. Acceptance of these funds will allow the recipients of the grant to implement their school improvement plans. I just want to tell you what this funding is going toward in each of the schools. So at McDonough Expeditionary Learning School, this will support math and ELA intervention teachers and a school counselor. At America's Choice at Sand, extensive professional development on literacy and numeracy, a math intervention program, and a school and family support provider. And at Burns Latino Studies Academy, a 5 through 8 instructional coach, and then a project and program facilitator who will focus on reducing chronic absenteeism and parent outreach efforts.
Thank you. The questions for Dr. Narvaez.
I have a question.
Dr. Taylor.
These are one-year grants, correct?
Yes.
So are you required to have a transition plan at the end of the grant? And I'm thinking specifically, for example, about having 1 year of a school counselor that students really bond with and interact with, and then having no funding for that person afterwards. And with some of these, the other things too, intervention teachers, et cetera, is that part of the plan? Is that something you've considered?
Yeah. Jonathan, I'd ask you to come up because you and your team guide the planning of this and know how we plan for the contingencies. Again, it's such a good point when you use some of this to support the positions. How do we plan for the transition when the money goes away? And also Kate Carbone, our portfolio director for
And Kate was also the person who coordinated this effort for all the schools that applied in the district. So just to give her some acknowledgement for the work that she did for all of the schools that applied. My understanding is the grant is actually 2 years, with possibilities beyond those 2 years. That's to begin with, but also in terms of transitioning, part of it is throughout these 2 years to build capacity with staff so that beyond the 2 years, there are people who are trained to pick up some of the work that is happening with the extra staff during these 2 years.
Thank you.
Further questions? Mr. Cotto.
Thank you. That was good, Beth. I was going to ask that too. But the second question I had was, so it's a 1 year grant, and typically you
2
have to-
years.
2 years, good. You have to report back to the SDE or the U.S. Department of Education. I guess my question is, what sort of reporting do we have to do back to them? And, what sort of conditions are being imposed on as a kind of condition for taking this grant money?
So each of the plans is written around those 4 areas that are described in the background. So talent, academics, culture, climate, and operations. So each of the items that the grant pays for is connected to that, and there's also performance metrics that are also connected. So for example, culture and climate, you'll see goals in their school improvement plan that speaks to the reduction in chronic absenteeism, improving attendance, so on and so forth. So those are the measures that they have to monitor throughout the school year and report back to the SDE in terms of their progress towards meeting those goals.
Okay. I mean, it'd be helpful to see perhaps either kind of an interim report, or maybe even previous reports, because I think to Beth's point, this is, I think, in many instances, the second iteration of the school improvement grant for these particular schools. So we've had school improvement grants already for Burns, we've had it already for Sand. The money ran out, people scrambled to find money, where we're gonna fill in the gap, and then now we're doing this all over again. So, I don't know, it seems like in some ways deja vu, because I feel like we've been here to some extent.
Right, and we can share the exact plan so you can see exactly what we're talking about. And there are, reports that come out. There are quarterly visits that look at very specific elements within those 4 categories, and it comes out with how the school is progressing towards that. And I think it's also important to note that for each of the schools, that the school improvement grants is not the only funding that is supporting their work. In fact, it's a small part of the work, of the additional funding that the district has provided to meet their school improvement plan goals. So their school improvement plan goals were written, and these are supplemental supports, but the bulk of it, you should know, is this is a small fraction of that, the big picture of the work at those 3 schools.
Thank you.
Mr. Brascia.
This fitness room, will it be used during the day, or during the class, while classes are in session?
Yes.
And the students will be assigned to it, or will that be part of their schedule?
Yes, it'll be part of their PE, the physical education program at the school.
But, and who will monitor it, a teacher, or will there be someone?
There are 2 teachers who will be monitoring that.
2 teachers?
Yes.
Certified in what?
Physical education.
So the students will get credit for physical ed by going to the fitness room?
That's correct.
That's part of the curriculum then?
Yes.
Now, after school and before school, will the fitness room be available?
It will be available after school, a few days a week for the community. In terms of student use after school, I'm not sure what that's going to look like.
And the community will be, that also will be monitored by
Staff.
community or teachers?
By the school staff.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on this? Hearing no further questions, or any debate on the motion? Hearing no debate, chair calls question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion carries. A3, acceptance of funds, Connecticut State Department of Education incubation funding for Montessori Magnet School at Moylan, $2,654,000. Currently, Montessori Magnet has outgrown temporary space at Moylan School and as such is in need of a new location. The State Department of Education will provide the cost for incubation funding. The incubation funding will allow for the Montessori Magnet students to be located in temporary quarters until a new permanent facility is identified. Resolution is that the Hartford Board of Education approves the City of Hartford acceptance of $2,654,000 on its behalf from the Connecticut State Department of Education in incubation funding for the Montessori Magnet School. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Dr. Narvaez.
Yes, thank you. We brought this item to you at the last board meeting and explained that the state would be releasing money in installments, and very quickly we've gotten the second installment of the funding. So as you know, you approved in 2013 the development of the Montessori Magnet as a school and also approved its magnet operations plan. We negotiated with the State Department of Education for incubation funds to prepare the temporary site. For the incubation of the school, the State Education Department has already dispersed, and you accepted the funds, $3,140,893 in incubation funds at your last meeting at the July 22nd board meeting, and that was for phase 1. The board's approval tonight of the second phase of funding in the amount of $2,600,054 will permit the procurement of the project through the City of Hartford to continue with finding the site and preparing the site for the temporary location and for furniture and equipment needed. And we have other staff in the audience, Mr. Eddie Hanau and Dr. Don Slater here if you have any additional questions. Again, this is follow-up to the item last month, the second disbursement of the funds.
Other questions? Any debate? No questions, no debate. Chair calls question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any against? Motion carries. A4, contract approval, CBS therapy, $1,116,024. Hartford Public Schools will contract the CBS therapy to provide speech and language services to mandated HPS students who are required to receive these services. Due to the shortage of speech and language professionals, it is necessary to utilize the service to ensure compliance with federal special education guidelines. Resolution is that the Hartford Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute a contract with CBS Therapy for the terms delineated in the documents ending June 30, 2015 at a cost not to exceed $1,116,024. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Dr. Narvaez.
Yes, thank you. We find ourselves here in a situation that other districts across the country face in terms of shortage of speech therapists, and so we've contracted with CVS Therapy, and they're a leading provider of school-based therapy services in New England. They provide temporary and permanent staffing for speech-language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and occupational and physical therapy assistants. Due to the shortage in speech and language professionals, it's necessary to contract with CBS Therapy to provide speech and language services to mandated Hartford Public Schools students to ensure that we are providing the appropriate supports for students and are compliant with federal special education guidelines. In the past, we've contracted with other companies, but those companies have had issues filling our vacancies, causing time delays and risking compliance issues. The Hartford Public Schools worked with CBS Therapy last school year and have had a very productive relationship. CBS Therapy was able to fill all of our requested positions in a timely and consistent manner. We also found their staff to be highly skilled and professional. And in addition to the quality of work they provide, I also want to note that we did put this contract out for rebid, and CBS Therapy did win the contract through our bidding and proposal process.
Thank you. Any questions, Dr. Narvaez? Mr. Cotto?
I think it's kind of a fairly straightforward question, but I don't know, maybe it's a little more difficult. So the claim is that there's a shortage of speech and language therapists, but if we contract with a group, we're able to find them. So if there's a shortage, wouldn't the contractor also have difficulty finding speech therapists as well? So I guess it doesn't quite make sense to me that we're saying there's a shortage, but if we hire these other guys, then our shortage issue has been solved. And in that case, why don't we hire these people individually rather than going through a third party?
Sure, thank you for the question. I'll ask Clark Kennedy, our Executive Director of Special Education, to speak to how the staffing situation works to fill our needs.
Good evening. That's a very good question that I myself have had. As Dr. Narvaez did state, we had contracts with, and we have them with 3 other agencies right now that we've never used because they haven't been able to find the speech therapist that we need. So I did ask CBS Therapy and Edie DeSimone, who is the speech coordinator and one of my directors, and the people that tend to work for the agencies are people that don't want a permanent position. They like to have the flexibility of working for a year in one place, and maybe their husband travels, perhaps their wife travels, have moved around and whatever. But as far as hiring these people, one thing that CBS Therapy's contract has afforded us is that they, unlike some of the other agencies, will allow us to hire these people without penalty after they've worked for a year. So we now have 7, they have given us, or have agreed to, after this year, 7 of the people that are working for us this year under their contract. They will allow them to be hired by us if those people so choose to do so, which is very unusual. Usually there's penalties, there's years that they, X number of months that we're not allowed to hire them. So that has been very beneficial to us. We have done a lot of recruiting for speech therapists. We've worked closely with OTM. Ms. DeSimone has gone out to universities. We're one of the few districts that will hire speech therapists during their internship year, where they can work as a speech therapist, but we have to provide supervision for them. And we've been able to retain therapists through that, but of our 50 positions, there's 7 at this point that we cannot fill. So we are using CBS Therapy. But it is a good question to ask that I myself have asked, but it's really just up to the different people that just don't want to have a permanent job right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think that's to a certain extent fair. Folks want to have some flexibility, and it sounds like you said, we've had some success in retaining people, kind of apart from CBS. I guess, thinking long term, does it make sense to continue year after year paying CBS rather than thinking about how we're structuring the position in terms of pay, right? Because there aren't shortages where people are paid well enough and the conditions are good enough. I'm sure there aren't shortages in districts that have those sorts of things, so
No,
that's something to think about.
there are districts across the state and across the nation in all districts. But we have looked at also how we're structuring service delivery and how we can kind of look at that kind of setting to what we're providing for students and how we're providing it, to look at our numbers of therapists.
So I think in the short term, if this is what you need, you feel you need to staff our district appropriately, then I think I'm supportive, but I'd like to see, you know, what's the next step after this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Mr. Mayor?
Just quickly, and it's not so much a question, but perhaps a follow-up point to look back at the reports that we had on meeting our special needs obligation, and how many of those areas were related to language and speech therapy, and again, coming up with a longer-term solution to make sure that we not just provide the service, but have a longer-term plan as to how to satisfy the demand.
Make sure, yeah.
Anything else on this? Any other debate on the motion? Hearing no debate, chair calls the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any against? Motion carries. Item A5, contract continuation approval, College Board, $100,000. The College Board is a national not-for-profit membership organization whose work falls into three major categories: college readiness, college connection, and success and advocacy. The contract delineates two particular services: SAT School Day and SAT Readiness Program for SAT School Day. The resolution is the Hartford Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to approve the contract with the College Board for the term delineated in the contract ending June 30, 2015 at a cost not to exceed $100,000. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution? It's been moved. Is there a second on that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Dr. Narvaez.
Yes, thank you. First, I have to say, when I was on the outside looking in and I found out that we offered opportunities for our students to take the SAT during the day, I thought, what a great idea. I mean, this is a great way to catch so many of our students. And, you know, right now, as we're trying to get them ready for college, you still need to take the SAT as part of your entrance requirements. So the fact that we're able to catch so many of our kids by offering this during the school day, I think is a great program for us. Let me talk a little bit more about the rationale of why we're doing this, some of the results that we're seeing, and then some supports and plans for future success that we have in place with the SAT administration. And I also have Sonia Denal and Jonathan Swan available to answer any questions you may have about why we're doing this way. So first, the rationale. This is in direct alignment with our strategic operating plan goal of college readiness. And although there are some waivers available for low-income students to take the test on Saturday, we see students often struggle with transportation, and again, we have them during the school day. So it's helping to make sure greater numbers of students have another piece of the puzzle in place on their road to being prepared for college. SAT prep programs are costly, and with this, students are able to participate in the official SAT online prep course as a result of our contract with the College Board. Score reports on performance and strategies for increasing scores becomes part of the student success plan. The Skills Performance Report also helps us look at school, district, and state level performance data and includes average scores by section and student score distribution, so we can use it to understand students' needs and to plan for instruction and support. The School Day Administration Initiative supports the development of a college and career readiness culture. Student level and standard-based score reports inform curriculum improvements, differentiation of instruction, and further alignment to the Common Core state standards. And again, it helps to increase awareness of and access to post-secondary opportunities and to increase enrollment of underrepresented students in college. And although some of the schools have shown growth, some of our district SAT scores are flat. Although I do want to say, and Sonia can further elaborate on it if you so wish, that while we see flat performance when comparing 12th graders from one year to the next, we are seeing an improvements when we look at how students perform in 12th grade compared to the test administration in 11th grade. So we're seeing improvement when they take the test again from 11th to 12th grade. But we have some strategies to address some of the flat performance by increasing alignment in the instructional shifts that are aligned to the Common Core State Standards. There's alignment with the MAP assessment. We're looking at our use of the data reports and data-driven decision-making, and increasing the integration of the PSAT and SAT progression in our planning work. We're providing some supports for students, such as a Saturday SAT prep course, teacher professional development. We're collaborating with the Department of Curriculum and Instruction to align instruction, providing a bank of SAT resources on the academic website. There's a creation of college and career readiness data profiles for each high school for principals to utilize during their school improvement planning process and goal setting. And we can utilize AP potential reports also to inform instruction. And some plan for future success includes stronger integration in the school improvement planning process, stronger integration into the district bank of assessments, increased alignment and utilization of the PSAT, SAT continuum, continued alignment with the Common Core State Standard and the SAT skill categories, and more PD for changes in the newly designed SAT, again, which is aligned to the Common Core State Standards. So again, I just wanted to take the time to provide you with some in-depth rationale for kind of why we're doing it this way, what we're seeing in terms of results, and some strengthened plans for both student support and a way to integrate this work into our school improvement planning process and our adoption of and implementation of the Common Core State Standards.
Thank you. Questions for Dr. Narvaez?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chair,
Reverend Hess?
I'm quite impressed with this idea. I think it's a great move for us to have it within our school system. I know that in the suburbs, this is a very common practice, that it's made easy for young people to take the SAT, and I think it's a smart move for the city of Hartford to move in the same direction to make it accessible to our young people while they're in the school day so they can succeed. So I think this is a great idea.
Thank you. Mr. Brescia?
A question about the College Board. You administer the SAT?
Yes, the College Board does administer the SAT.
Now the SAT school day, is that the day that they take the test?
Yes, they take it in district with their teachers and staff members who they're familiar with.
So we're paying for that part?
We're paying for not just the administration of the SAT, but there are other enhanced score reports and other features that we receive because of the contract.
And school, the second part, SAT readiness program, what would that entail?
There are a wide variety of benefits that the College Board provides. However, there are some that are specific to the contract, namely an enhanced score report on the student level aligned to each school, as well as the skill categories that those test items are taken from. And we provide student level, school level, and district level reports on that. There's also training for teachers on how to utilize the SAT online prep course, as well as all students who take the SAT during the school day receive the online prep course free of charge or included in the contract. There's also PD for our teachers on a variety of topics, including data analysis, instructional strategies, PSAT, SAT alignment, Common Core State Standards alignment, a variety of different topics that will help enhance what the teachers do to prepare students for the SAT. We also receive a question and answers report, which provides details on each question or each test item. It provides an explanation for the correct answer, an explanation as to why some students got the answer wrong, and it also provides suggestions for how students can solve similar problems on future administrations of the SAT. And then we also receive a different form of the SAT. So the SAT that the students take during the school day is different from the one that is administered on Saturdays.
So the Saturday test is held in confidence and at the College Board for a number of years before they release those items. But the Wednesday administration, we get those items immediately following the administration with an explanation of the skill category, what the item, how we can improve students' performance on those items, et cetera, et cetera. So the test is no longer embargoed after we take it on a Wednesday.
So the readiness is actually just giving them a pre-test for the test?
It's more than that. It's a series of lessons that go along with items from SATs that were taken in the past. So they have lesson plans, they have practice tests, they have do-nows, they have a variety of instructional strategies that teachers can implement to enhance not necessarily their performance on the SAT, but the acquisition of the skills required to be college and career ready.
Now, how do they get ready for this? You said that these students are given help for get ready for the test. Is it a separate class they would take, or was it someone, how is this, what are the mechanics of this?
That's a very good question. And as Dr. Navarez alluded to, we do have a variety of supports, and they look different in different schools. So for example, the Academy of Engineering and Green Technology, they offer a Saturday SAT prep class. However, there are other schools that embed their SAT preparation in their daily instruction. A school of that nature would be the University High of Science and Engineering. They actually embed SAT in everything that they do. And that's the move that many of the schools are making as the SAT aligns with Common Core state standards. And the Common Core state standards and the instructional shifts required to help students acquire those skills are being incorporated into the new SAT, the newly redesigned SAT.
Common Core hasn't started yet, correct?
We've made those shifts in the district.
It's not in, people who are taking the test now, students who are taking the test now, are taking a test from what they've learned from pre-Common Core. I don't see how it would be.
So the students, for the past 3 years, we've been offering it, and our students have been exposed to the Common Core in the district, in the instructional shifts.
You mean?
Beg your pardon?
They've been exposed to it on those special days for readiness.
No, during the school day.
During the school day.
During school.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on this? Mr. Cotto, and then Mr. Stallings.
All right, great, thank you. So interesting, I just had a couple of new thoughts that hadn't come up in previous conversations, but so our students in Hartford are taking the SAT on a Wednesday, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. What are kids in the suburbs doing on that Wednesday?
Many of the school districts in Connecticut are following suit with Hartford's lead.
Okay, can you name them? Like, do we know which ones those are?
Right, so off the top of my head, I do not, but I know that New Haven is offering it during the school day. I believe, I think Avon and Farmington have already begun, or they're looking into it.
That's fair. But by and large, most of the kids in the suburbs are actually in class learning things in their high school courses. Is that generally, would you say that's generally true?
I mean, I would say it's hard to speak of what is in the suburban classrooms. Are you speaking of the SAT administration specifically? Are they offering the SAT administration during the school day?
Right, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay. We can follow up and do some research and look specifically at what other suburban districts are doing. Let us get back to you so we can provide you accurate
Okay, well, I think having been to school in the suburbs, I can I mean, it's just one example, but I think for the most part, most students on a Wednesday in a suburban high school are going to be in class learning, and then they'll, out of class on a Saturday, take the SAT. And all that said to say is that I think it's just kind of an extra day that we're pulling kids out of class to take another test rather than preparing for college or their career. So I just wanted to kind of, just something that occurred to me that I think is kind of unusual. I wanted to get at the data as well. In the suburbs, when a kid signs up to take the SAT, usually they'll pay or they'll get a fee waiver if they're eligible. But in Hartford, my concern is we're doing something quite different. We're actually using aggregate data and kind of all sorts of data to actually evaluate schools and principals. Can you explain precisely how we're using this data and whether it's actually included in principal evaluation?
I can't speak to that because I don't evaluate principals, nor am I privy to the data points that are included in their evaluations. But I can speak from an instructional perspective. As I collaborate with the curriculum and instruction department, we help teachers to enhance their practice that not only deals with SAT skills, but also college and career readiness skills across the board.
And principals have multiple goals that are considered in their evaluation process. It's just one, the student performance is one part of the evaluation. There are multiple other parts. So SAT improvement might be one of many. So not making a goal relative to the SAT specifically is not something that would sway a principal's evaluation, so to speak. The other thing I think is important to note that what Dr. Narvaez mentioned before is, as a district, we've tried to reduce the number of assessments going forward in 11th and 12th grade so that we're not testing too often, so that this actually will take the place of assessments that were already in existence.
Okay, well it sounds like that in some ways better that we're reducing testing, but now it sounds like we're over-relying on the SAT to do things that it's not necessarily meant to be. I mean, it's a college entrance exam. It's not an exam to evaluate a school or an individual principal, or even an academic record of an individual student.
You're absolutely right. There are multiple measures that are considered when looking at a school performance, as well as looking at the performance of a leader. And SAT is, if it's a goal in the principal's evaluation, it is, again, one of many measures that are considered.
And I would just mention again that the SAT is being redesigned to align with the Common Core state standards, so it is making it a more useful assessment for us to inform instructional decisions that we're making on a daily basis.
That gets to my next point, Dr. Narvaez, about the Common Core alignment. So I think it's important for the public also to understand that there are other college entrance exams, such as the ACT. So, are we offering, if we're about preparing students, are we offering that test free as well, so that students can take the ACT rather than the SAT? Are we preparing them for any sort of police force examinations or fire department examinations that they might want to take, military examinations? I think all it said to say is that there's a bigger universe of kind of entrance exams that's out there, and it's kind of, I think, curious, and I think there's some actually good people writing about this, and how David Coleman, who created the Common Core, is now the head of the College Board and has aligned SAT with the Common Core, which is all done on Microsoft computers. Interesting, Bill Gates actually funded the Common Core development as well. So this is kind of like sort of collusion in kind of the materials that are being used for education. So I guess all that said to say is, I think there's some concerns about, why the SAT and not the ACT, why not other things? So that's something I think, we need to deal with perhaps in the long run, because we're kind of moving towards kind of everything aligned with Common Core, everything aligned with SAT. Well, who benefits? Do our students really benefit from that at the end of the day? I think that's a debatable question. So thank you.
Anything else on this? Mr. Stallings.
I just have a quick question. Is there a plan to sort of, I guess, educate or inform parents about how this is going to be implemented or take place and when?
Thank you for asking that question. The month of October is set aside in the district for College and Career Awareness Month. And I have to thank the mayor for opening up City Hall for our elementary students to come and take tours to view and learn about the different career opportunities in politics and at City Hall. So with that said, during that month, we have a series of community outreaches and we host them in community centers around the district, or around the city, I should say. And we speak about the SAT, we talk about the PSAT, we talk about aspirations, and everything and anything that parents want information on, so that they can be well informed about what we do in the school district to partner with them for their child's academic success.
And this last question. I know at one particular school, a sorority helps with at the SAT prep. Are other community organizations would be able to, forgive me for saying that, would community organizations be able to participate in professional development?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a very good question, and I will look into that. I will find out from the College Board, because you're absolutely right. There are a number of sororities, even some fraternities and other community-based organizations that help our students prepare, and they extend that to students in Hartford, even if they're not part of the program. So having those individuals astute and ready to teach our students would be a very good idea.
Thank you.
Anything else on this?
Mr. Chair, just one quick point, and this is kind of in reference to what Mr. Cotto was saying, not relevant necessarily to this year, but there are over 800 schools now that don't require the SAT, and an increasing number of students are applying to those schools. And I think it could be of real value to Hartford to understand, with respect to our student demographics, where our students are actually going to school, where they're applying and where they're going. And this program, I think we all agree, has value. You know, to give students an opportunity to take the SAT for free and eliminate transportation issues is a huge benefit. But if down the road it doesn't make as much sense to our student demographic as perhaps some other preparatory programs, we could be mindful of that.
May I respond to
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that additionally, so I work at Trinity College, and I've been involved with some admissions stuff as well, and I think it's important to also not lose focus. We were having this discussion on the SAT. We may disagree or agree on whether it should be, purchased from the SAT, but I think the big thing that, a place like Trinity College is looking at is the degree of difficulty of the students' courses that they're taking in high school, their GPA, what sort of, have they taken AP courses, have they taken outside courses, SAT may be a part of it, or ACT may be a part of it, and like Beth said, some of them are not even requiring it. But I think that's the key thing, and we have to ask ourselves in our high schools, are we offering the full assortment of classes that kids would get in suburban schools, or are they kids limited to a very small number of classes in their high school? Are they challenging? Are they, I hate the word rigorous, but I guess the word challenging is probably the best thing, because that's really what the colleges are looking at. Are these students prepared in a wide variety of things, not just reading and math on the SAT? Have they had unique experiences, and so on and so forth? So, I think this is a minor thing. I think the big thing is that what we're offering the kids in the high school. So, I just wanted to frame our conversation around that.
I do agree with both comments that were made. Yes, there are an increasing number of schools that don't require the SAT for admissions, but they do use SAT scores for placement and for other things as well. So even though they don't require them, or they don't make decisions solely based on SAT, they most definitely look at all admissions exams, ACT as well as SAT, to determine placement, to determine scholarship opportunities. And in addition to what Trinity and other highly selective schools are looking for, you're absolutely right, they are looking for well-rounded students who have a wide variety of opportunities and experiences. However, I just participated in a professional development at Stanford University, and I participated in an administration case study. And they most definitely take a strong look at SAT scores. And we know that those scores are still very relevant to highly selective schools. Perhaps our students are not currently ready, or perhaps they're not currently prepared to compete with highly selective schools. However, I personally have a goal and a dream that some of our students who score in the 700s or maybe even the high 600s can get the attention and the support they need so that they can be prepared to apply to highly selective schools and universities. I think our students deserve that as well.
And I would just add, this is about maximizing options for our students. So of course, increasing challenging and rigorous course opportunities for our students is one way we will continue to do it, but also by removing any barriers that are going to limit the options and choices that our students have is part of our responsibility. And so offering this SAT in the day is one small part of removing a barrier to helping maximize the choices and the options that our students have in their future.
Just wanted to add one more thing, if I might. So interestingly, because you discussed that, you kind of pointed out that SAT scores are, in some instances, helpful. But I also want to point out that there's some evidence, at Trinity College, for instance, of various programs in which students that have lower SAT scores that are admitted, but have overall kind of more challenging, more interesting course loads, are coming in and actually doing much better at the colleges in some of these instances than the kids that have higher SAT scores. And so my concern is that we're kind of overemphasizing the SAT and not emphasizing those other aspects of what a kid that would need to go to college would need to have and be prepared in college. Because right now, the SAT in many instances, it may open doors, but it also may pose as many barriers as opportunities, because what college, particularly kind of elite colleges, what they often do is they actually discriminate against our students based on SAT scores, because our kids are, from day one, many of them are essentially behind the 8 ball in terms of the standardized test results. So they're actually discriminating against our kids on the SAT, and for us to overemphasize that, right, rather than giving them a very rich and challenging experience in high school, I think is putting them at a very big disadvantage, because their SAT scores aren't going, it's kind of like a lose-lose situation in many instances. There's colleges that won't admit our kids with low SAT scores because they're concerned about their rankings and stuff like US News and World Reports. And so by saying SAT, 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 we're not kind of giving, we're kind of posing as many problems as kind of opening opportunities, right? Why not say ACT, right? Or why not say, you know what, why don't you take the most challenging classes you can take? You don't necessarily need to take the SAT to get into these 800 schools that have applied. And that might open new doors for them as well. So I just want to be careful about overemphasizing this particular test, that's all.
Mr. Chairman?
I appreciate the point about overemphasis, and just want to again state this isn't an either or. Like either you can take challenging courses or the SAT, or you can take the SAT or the ACT. This is one piece of helping to get our students college and career ready, and again, removing any potential barriers that may stand in their way, but one piece, not at the expense of offering rigorous curricula to our students.
Dr. Best?
And I wanted to support that same statement. Part of why this excites me is because we're all committed to closing the achievement gap. And closing the achievement gap is not just what happens in school itself. Closing the achievement gap comes down to what happens to you in life. And I'm not saying that SATs are the panacea. What I'm saying is many of us who have had the opportunity to have higher education, we take certain things for granted because we might have come from families where we weren't the first one to go to college. So within our family system, there were certain supports and ideas in place. When I mentioned the suburbs, I'm saying that parents that went to college themselves and have achieved some success might say, I'm going to put my child in a preparation course to take the SATs, or I'm going to expose them to seminars so they'll be better prepared. It's not to take away from what happens in the classroom. It's just that if you're not a first-generation college goer, there's certain things that the community or your family does for you. And we always say it takes a village to raise a child. We're making the school a village when it comes to providing supports for this small segment of activity. Of course, there's other choices that they can make, or there's other tests they can take, but this is one example of something that will eliminate a barrier and support a number of young people that may not have parents that are in a position to help them in this way. So I'm not saying we stop preparing young people in the classroom, but I'm saying let us be the village and put something in place to help those young people that may not have parents or grandparents that went to college and understand they need a prep course. So that's all I'm saying.
May I respond? I think that's a fair point, Shelley. And, you know, I'll concede that point. I guess my concern is that, again, you know, we're putting this in front of folks and saying it is an opportunity, but in many ways, to be very concrete, we've hampered kids in the schools from actually capitalizing on this opportunity. So for instance, there are fewer guidance counselors in the middle school level and the high school level than before. Who's gonna help a student interpret the information that they have here, right? And tell them, you know, these are what your options are. We have fewer classes, particularly AP classes, in a lot of our high schools, right? And so those are the courses that are gonna prepare kids to do well on the SAT and other sorts of things later on. And so my concern is that we're putting this out there as kind of like a replacement for this idea of equity and kind of saying, look, we're giving folks equity, but in reality, the supports that are behind the scenes that are actually supposed to get kids ready aren't there in the same sorts of ways that they were before. So to be very concrete, I think that's what I'm trying to say about this. So, but I agree with you that it can open doors. But my concern is let's not kind of convince ourselves that we've opened doors, because we've actually in many ways pulled the rug out from a lot of kids. And I can be more concrete. I don't think now is necessarily the time for that, but that's what I'm concerned about. So thank you. I think your point is sound.
Mr. Chair, if I may just one final comment. Again, I really appreciate your emphasis on a holistic approach to preparing students, Mr. Cotto. But again, I just want to remind everybody watching that we're not suggesting that the SAT is a replacement for that holistic approach that you're suggesting to helping prepare our students for college.
So if I can respond, I think the answer is then, fine, the SAT, but are we going to restore guidance counselors at the level that they ought to be, right? There's supposed to be one guidance counselor for every 200 or 250 students, right? Do we have that? Do we have the full assortment of classes that every kid needs to have? Do we have the tutoring that they need? So if it's not a replacement, we need to actually come through and offer those things as well.
If I could just speak to the school counselor piece, we have an increasing number of school counselors on the middle school level. When I came into the district in 2010, I believe we had one school counselor on the middle school level. Now we've increased it to, I would say, off the top of my head, I think another position just was instated, so about 8 school counselors on the 6th through 8th grade level. And we are increasing the number of school counselors on the 9th through 12th grade level as well.
Anything else on this? All right, Chair calls the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any against? Motion carries. Section B, consent agenda. The chair moves that items B6, B7, and B8 be taken up as a single item. Is there a second to my motion? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on my motion?
I'd like to remove the NWA map. I'd like to talk about what those results are being used for.
Which one is that? Is it
6.
All right,
Number 6.
I'll amend my motion and do 7 and 8. We can come back to 6. Is there a second, please? Second. All right, the amendment's been made and seconded. We're taking up 7 and 8 as one item. All in favor of taking up 7 and 8 as one item, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any against? Okay, we take up nay. Okay, motion carries. We take up 7 and 8 as a single item. Are there any questions or any debate on items 7 and 8?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question. One of my concerns that I'm starting to see here, and I'm not sure how the system operates, I'm seeing a number of web-based initiatives or programs, and I'm wondering, are they all integrating, or are these all these random contracts? And I'm concerned that we keep buying these big Cadillacs that can't necessarily ride together. Is that a good metaphor, better? But I see all these big contracts, and I don't know if they can talk to each other, and I'm concerned, do we have a centralized IT department that's making sure all of these different projects go together? So for example, we have a web-based initiative for our schools and our website that way. We have this thing that goes with teacher evaluations. Now I see another thing that has something to do with student evaluations, all web-based. Do they all interface? And are these all separate companies, all getting large sums of money? Can we start to put them together as maybe one company that can do one thing and bring everything together? That's why I was concerned about putting 7 in it along with, because it's another one of those programs. And we keep seeing them showing up at the last minute that we've got to decide today, and yet it's another chunk of $100,000 or $200,000 we're going to spend. So that's why I'm concerned.
If I may, I'm glad you pulled that out so that we could highlight the fact that we are taking a look at all these systems and how we can integrate them. And in fact, it's why we're only asking for a year approval of the SunGuard public sector, the web-based district system for data analysis. We don't want to pull that tool away from teachers because it gives them their data in real time and their ability to use it to inform their instruction and planning. But we are taking the time to explore alternatives this year so that we can find a way for the system to talk to one another.
The chair would just add on this that I've expressed to Dr. Narvaez my concern that we've had a number of contracts that come up on, this has to be done this month, because if it's not done this month, the contract lapses. But we're still getting our arms around what all those contracts are. And, hopefully in the future, we'll have, a much longer lead time and a better sense of what's truly urgent. Not everything is, has to be done right now or else. And we can push some of this maybe through committee to vet it out a little bit better. But we're only at a very nascent point on where, where we, compared to where we'd like to be, or at least I'd like us to be on this. But it's a fair point, and it's, Dr. Best, you're fairly new on the board, but I can assure you that this is not a concern that hasn't been raised, and hasn't been the source of some controversy. That, we have a number of contracts that come up, and when people ask questions, we've been told, well, we have to do this. Well, why? Because otherwise we don't have this service next week, and that has not been an example of good planning, and I think we're going to do what we can to move away from that. But, I would ask the members to be somewhat patient, because we have a large number of contracts, and getting them organized the way we want them and getting the lead times out and figuring out how best to deal with some of these things at the committee level is not, it's not all obvious and easy, but it's a completely fair point, and it's a concern that I as the chair share, and I shared before I was the chair, and I'll share long after I'm no longer the chair, so.
And if I may, Chairman, we're in agreement, and it's our commitment to look ahead and do some more planning about contracts where it's possible, as we discussed in our board retreat, in terms of our agreements on how we wanted to work together. So I'm in agreement, and I make a commitment to do that planning work for the board.
Is there anything else?
Just quickly, as scribblers, on number 8, the expiration date, June 12, 2000.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. The chair would deem that as a friendly. Mr. Stallings, you were the seconder of that motion. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All in favor of 7 and 8 signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any against on it? Okay, let's go back to item 6. Contract continuation approval, Northwest Evaluation Association, $221,445. The Hartford Public Schools will continue the contract with Northwest Evaluation Association to provide testing and reporting services, commonly referred to as the Measures of Academic Progress MAP. The NWEA MAP assessment is a computer adaptive assessment that we plan to administer during the current and the next school year in the fall, winter, and spring. Items are aligned with the Common Core state standards and will assist the district in preparing for the Smarter Balance assessments during 2014-2015. That the Hartford Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute the continuation of the contract with Northwest Evaluation Association for the period of October 1, 2014 through September 30, 2015 at a cost not to exceed $221,445. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second on it? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Dr. Narvaez?
Yes, thank you. As you know, we're in a time of transition in our accountability and assessment systems in the state. And so as we transition to the SBAC system, we're looking for a stable measure that we can use to track student progress over time, to set performance targets at the individual school level and at the systemic level. We have decided to use the MAP assessment as that stable measure to look at student progress over time. And it also allows our administrators and teachers the data that they need. It's not only to provide us a stable measure, but it also gives important information to understand individual student performance and to make plans to improve that performance and improve instruction as well.
Questions on
Mr. Chairman?
Dr. Best?
So once again, here is my simple question. Why are we spending $200,000 for this software that looks at performance and another $100,000 for another software that looks at performance if it's the same child?
Let me explain, they're two different things. So the first is an assessment that we get, so tests that we administer to students in the fall, in the spring, and the winter. And the second is a data analysis tool. So they do two separate things.
Can you understand my concern about
Absolutely.
spending all this money on all these assessment tools? And when I look at the needs of our children, I can imagine that school that does not have a library could use $300,000 right now to get some books for children instead of yet another computer program. And we have other ones running. So that's why I am expressing a certain level of frustration, because I don't have a good memory and I haven't been here that long, but I've heard of other software things that are measuring something on our children too. And I like computers, but I think we're spending a lot of money on it. And I wonder, is there someone in charge of this?
Again, there are two different things here. So one is the assessment and one is a way that we use it to track data. And I'll remind you again in the second item that we use the tool for data analysis. Part of our proposal here is to take a look at a way to integrate the systems so they talk to each other. We do work with MHIS in the city to help us make smart decisions about technology tools and resources that we use, and they'll be a partner in this assessment and analysis as well. We're in full agreement with you that we need to take a look at a way to integrate these systems, but again, we didn't want to take away a tool from teachers until we had the alternative in place. But that is part of our proposal this year, to take a look at that so we can come back and not just ask for fragmented pieces of tools, but to work toward an integrated system for sure.
And I know it sounds logical and very good that we'll look at it, but I'm wondering, do we as a city have the capacity or a core group of people that have the intellectual capacity to look at integration? Who is that? Where is that unit? Does it exist, or are we hoping that people that are not experts in this are going to figure it out?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Mayor?
So we have a integrated Metro Hartford Information Services Department, which provides the software and hardware support for both the Board of Ed and the city. I have the same concerns that you have with regards to municipal operations, because we had multiple duplicitous systems. We are working with the Smarter Cities Initiative to undertake a full review of departments on the city end and also on the Board of Ed to ensure that we're not being duplicative, but also because the technology changes so often and so frequently, to make sure that we're developing systems that are efficient economically and also from a practical point of view. My question goes more with regards to this particular one, with regards to legal mandates. And my understanding is that this is being done to comply with a legal mandate regarding testing. So I'm just trying to see if number 6 is based on a legal mandate as well.
Joan, do you want to speak to it?
Sure, yes. So the state does require us to select 2 assessments for our students. So we are doing NWEA, the MAP assessment, while we're in this interim phase before we full on do the SBAC testing. So this is going to be our first year of SBAC testing and baseline, so we won't get the data out of that. So we do have to select 2 tools. So we're doing this, and we are doing the DIBELS for the kindergarten through 2nd grade, and then we have the CMT and CAP will continue for science in this upcoming year.
Anything else on this?
Yeah.
Mr. Cotto?
So first of all, about the funding, I just wanted to check in on whether, it says special funds, is this still money from the Gates Foundation grant? So the Gates Foundation grant gave us money to test kids on the Gates Foundation created Common Core aligned NWEA test, correct? That's what the money's for? Gates Foundation?
The money that we use to pay for the NWA assessment comes from a Gates fund, a Gates grant.
Okay, just double checking that that's where it comes from. So I think the kind of big question that I have and concern, and you can kind of fill in the details, is from what I understand from parents and also teachers that are kind of aware of the kind of what the NWA map is and everything, the test is not actually being used to measure student performance per se. It's actually being used to measure teacher performance. So I just want to clarify whether that's true or not and to what extent it's true, because this test is supposed to tell us how kids are doing. But this school district, unlike many other school districts, is using this test to really say, to kind of judge, right or wrong, that how teachers are doing. And I just want to be clear, is that true?
We are primarily using this test to determine how our students are performing, to set our targets, and to set our intervention and enrichment plans. So the data that we actually get from this test, because it is an adaptive test, when we look at our SBAC, our state testing, that test, what we get is the performance of the student, how they do as a snapshot to their grade level standards. So if a student is in 6th grade and they're performing at a 3rd grade level, we know that they're behind, but all we're getting is a snapshot to that standard. It doesn't tell us specifically how they are behind, what they know and what they don't know. We know that they are not at grade level. When we look at the MAP assessment, because it is adaptive, and so as students take the test, the questions will get harder, and if the student struggles 3 times in a row, the questions will start going back. So you can actually, it's more of a diagnostic test where you can say, once you get a RIT score, which is what the number comes out as, you can determine what skills the students know and doesn't know, and what grade level they're specifically at, which is a different type of information that we need then to set targets. So we can then use that data to look at, instead of saying 75% of our students will grow during the school year, now we're saying if we have students that are 1 and 2 years behind their grade level, we can set a different type of plan for them than a student that's 3 grade levels behind versus students that are 4 grade levels behind. And it requires us setting different targets so that we hit that achievement gap. So a student 1 or 2 years behind needs to grow at least 1 1/4 years so we can start catching them up and eliminate the achievement gap. A student that is 3 years behind needs to really grow 1 1/2 years during the school year, and it keeps increasing from there. So we actually get data that we can target our plans for. It is part of the school improvement plan when the schools are setting their targets for growth, but we get the results in the reading and math areas alone.
I think you can, if I can just jump in, just want to say that I think you can hear from Joan's detailed explanation that our primary focus is student performance and student growth over time. We use multiple measures in our teacher evaluation system, but student performance is just one thing we look at when determining teacher performance. But again, our primary emphasis here is absolutely on student performance and growth over time.
Well, I just want to kind of, again, add some kind of details. You may very well have plans for individual students, but from what I understand from individual teachers, they are saying and writing to me and saying that these goals, in terms of whatever you call them, RIT, growth, or whatever you want to call them, are actually being used for teacher evaluation purposes, and that's actually what this data is being used for. And now, the problem that I have with that is that, again, similar to the SAT, is that the NWEA map is what kids are learning. They're not learning math, science, reading, writing, social studies, art, whatever. They're actually learning NWEA map, and they're getting, that's the curriculum. And so, because their teachers are being evaluated on that, And so my concern is that we're using this test in such a way that it was never intended to be, and we're actually reducing what kids ought to be learning, even though you're saying, oh, kids are going to make 1.5 years growth. In reality, you're cutting it down to just the NWA math. And so I think that's my concern, is we're actually giving our kids less than before. So that's what I'm concerned about.
And I would just jump in again and say we teach to the standards and not to the NWEA MAP test, and we really are using this as a benchmark assessment throughout the year to look at students' growth over time. As Joan mentioned, it's an adaptive test and adjusts to kind of students' performance level at that time. But you know, I want to assure you that we're guided by the standards and then align our curriculum to that. And this is, again, just one assessment that is used in an array of assessments that we use to understand student performance.
I think, I mean, again, I want to push back, because if my job is dependent on kids doing well on this particular test, that's what I'm going to offer them in the school and in my classroom. This test doesn't have social studies, it doesn't have science, it doesn't have interesting literature, it doesn't have kind of complex mathematics. It has the NWA math, right? So I guess I think we're kind of being disingenuous when we say that we're kind of like, you know, we're working with the standards and that's what it is. We've put people's jobs on the line for this particular test. So that's what kids are getting in school. They're not getting the rich experiences they would get in the suburbs. And so I'm concerned about that. And I think, you know, what I'd like to see us is we could certainly use this data to help kids, and I think if that's what we're doing, then that I think is defensible, but that's not entirely what we're doing. And I'd like to see our policy change on that, because this isn't intended for teacher evaluation. That's what I'm concerned about, and it's reducing what our kids are learning. So I'll just leave it at that, because it doesn't sound like we're interested in moving to in a different direction. But I'm fairly certain that in the suburbs, for instance, where kids are learning and they're doing well, they're not getting this, right? So that's what I want to get across.
Just one point of clarification. I just want people to understand that teachers' jobs aren't on the line based on the NWEA math assessment. And just to emphasize again that we use multiple measures to assess teacher performance. I just don't want people thinking that we judge teachers and that we make employment decisions based on one data point.
Okay, Beth, you know, not to be disrespectful, but I have a letter in my inbox in my Gmail from a Teach for America teacher who says she was not renewed based on her NWEA MAP growth. Just on that. So, you know, I don't know what the actual policy is and what the actual practice is, and I see folks like nodding their head. That's what the email says. So whether maybe she's a blatant liar, but that's what folks are being led to believe, that their jobs are based on this test and this test alone. So I just want to kind of clarify whether it's true or not. That's what people who are in the field, in the classroom, are saying.
I can't speak to that particular teacher or that case. I can say that this is not the only measure that we are using to look at teacher performance, but we are looking at where our students are at, and we have to make a plan for the schools, and we need a data system to do that. We need to have data. You know, several years ago, we had formative assessments that were aligned to the CNT and the CAPT. So we had a fall, winter, and then we had the administration of the state testing. As we are moving towards that, the state is putting out same types of interim assessments that will go on during the year that measures student performance and growth along the way. In the meantime, we are using this MAP assessment and as an interim assessment so that you can get growth scores along the way. So when we have a fall to a winter, we can actually see how many skills students have built. And it does give you clear and accurate standards and skills that students need to attain to get to grade level.
Thanks, thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the time. I appreciate it.
Anything else on this? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any against?
Nay.
Motion carries. Where are we? We are now on item 7, executive session, collective bargaining. Before I ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss items 9 and 10, the individual who is the subject of item 10, have they received the required legal notice that this matter would be taken up and then given the opportunity to demand that it be done in public?
Yes, they have.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there a motion to go into executive session? It's been moved, is it seconded?
We gotta go.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? All right, we're going to executive session. We'll take Ms. Kaufman and Ms. Color-Hodge.
At Hartford Public Schools, we care about one thing above all, the future of our kids. That's why we're dedicated to providing all students with the knowledge and skills needed in the new global culture. Hartford Public Schools is thriving. More student success stories, more world-class facilities, more university and corporate partnerships, more amazing talent coming and staying in Hartford. This is how education is supposed to work. Welcome to Hartford Public Schools, where the future is present.
Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any against? We're out of executive session. Item 9, proposed collective bargaining agreement with the Hartford School Support Supervisors Association. The Board of Education, the recommended action is the Board of Education approves the proposed collective bargaining agreement with the Hartford School Support Supervisors Association, Local 78, AFSA, AFL-CIO. The parties reached a tentative agreement on June 25th, 2014, and the membership bargaining unit ratified the tentative agreement on July 30th, 2014. Is there a motion to adopt the contract?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on the motion? Hearing none, the chair calls question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any against? Motion carries. Item 10, termination due to non-renewal. The recommended action is that the Hartford Board of Education adopts the findings of fact and recommendation of the board subcommittee and authorizes the non-renewal of the employment contract of the non-tenured teacher identified on Exhibit A. Is there a motion to adopt? It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved in second. Is there any debate on this? Hearing none, the chair calls the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any against? Carries. No further items of business. Chair to entertain a motion to adjourn. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any against? Adjourned.
At Hartford Public Schools, we care about one thing above all, the future of our kids. That's why we're dedicated to providing all students with the knowledge and skills needed in the new global culture. Hartford Public Schools is thriving. More student success stories, more world-class facilities, more university and corporate partnerships, more amazing talent coming and staying in Hartford. This is how education is supposed to work. Welcome to Hartford Public Schools, where the future is present.